Hello, my name is Adam, and welcome to the Lead Realm. Thank you for joining me on my journey to paint the models of my youth. This channel is both a diary of my progress and also my way of documenting my painting process. Today, I'm going to be continuing with my Revenge of the Doomlord army, and will be painting a couple of units at once. This is mostly because you have seen all of the techniques that I'm using here a few times now, so I thought it would be better to just get on with things. So, we have 2 units of 5 knights, as well as 12 crossbow-armed skeleton warriors. I don't have any of the command pieces for these older plastic skeletons. In fact, I'm not even sure there were any command upgrades for this kit, so I decided to convert my own. Using various pieces from my Bix box, I created a musician and a standard bearer. Nothing too impressive, but enough to clearly represent the command. We also have the crossbow-armed warriors. I mentioned in a previous video that I don't believe there were any official models for these, or at least nothing that I could find. So I booted up the 3D printer, found a file online for some crossbows, and scaled it appropriately for these figures. I used the left arms from the bow-wielding skeletons, which grips the crossbows nicely. If you're interested in more details on the painting process for my skeleton units, then please check out my previous videos. For both yours and my sanity, I won't repeat myself again in this video, but I will still show each of the steps briefly along with the paints that I'm using. I'm quite enjoying painting the horses. The large bones and surface areas are giving me a chance to get some nice smooth transitions, as well as show a little more depth and detail in the overall models. Even though these models are some of the oldest plastic Games Workshop figures out there, I honestly feel that they still hold up today. I know a lot of people dislike the exaggerated features such as the hands and feet, as well as things like the bony tails on the horses. But again, I think if something looks good from the tabletop, then that's the most important thing for me. Here is a small progress check after all of the bone has been completed. I wasn't 100% sure on how to paint the crossbows. They are actually quite detailed, however the details are small and look like they would be easily lost when looking at the model from any distance. Therefore, I decided to focus on the main elements, the things that stand out and would be visible from the tabletop. Rather than have this video be a repeat of the techniques and colours you've seen in my previous videos, I thought it might be a good time to take a look at some of the other models in my undead army that are ready and waiting to be painted in the future. I have another 4 carrion riders, bringing my total to 6. I was lucky enough to pick up these 14 metal longbow wielding skeleton warriors. The models are lovely, but I'm unsure about the value of giving a ballistic skill 2 unit ranged weapons, although the same could be said of the crossbow unit that I'm painting today. Here are some more skeletons, a mix of a few more plastic ones and a good chunk of the old metals from the 80s. Some really characterful sculpts in here, which bring a totally different vibe to the unit compared to the static, rigid plastic sculpts. Even more zombies. I even have a few more that are sitting in the paint stripper and will be added to this unit. I think this brings me up to a total of 60, a real horde if I've ever seen one. I absolutely love the original corpse cart model. However, I wasn't sure how to use it in a 4th or 5th edition army list, so I decided to put it on a 40 by 60mm base. That way I can use it in a unit of skeletons or zombies as a unit filler, or perhaps on its own as the part of a baggage train or similar. Of course, I have the King Clown of the Undead himself, Nagash the Necromancer Lord. This model often gets listed in those worst sculpts ever list, so I suppose I will need to try hard to make it look as good as possible when I get around to painting it. You may notice a couple of gaps in this unit of metal mounted whites. That is because they are part of the Revenge of the Doomlord list, so I will have to be sure to paint the rest of this unit after this project concludes. These are the 90s metal models. I don't have the non-mounted versions with hand weapons, so I might need to look out for those in the future. Another unit of metal skeletons. This time, all of these models feature armour, so I'm planning to use these ones as armoured skeletons with hand weapons. Again, loads of characterful sculpts here, and they really look like a disorganised rabble. Next, we have a selection of various character models, several necromancers, Heinrich and Krell, a couple of ghosts or banshees, tomb prints, a battle standard bearer, and a selection of wights on foot. We also have the wonderful zombie dragon. I genuinely can't wait to paint this model, as it's one of my all-time favourites. At the back, there is a substantial unit of mummies, which I'm not sure I could ever run in a game due to their massive points cost. Behind them is another skull chucker and a small unit of wraiths. Finally, we have a very large unit of armoured skeletons with halberds. I got lucky with a couple of Facebook trades and picked up way more of these than I can realistically use, but they will certainly make for an impressive unit on the tabletop when done. Back to painting. I continue with the familiar techniques from previous videos. These models are coming together quickly now due to all of my practice. I always find that the start of a new army is full of learning, understanding what you need to do with each model, how your chosen paints react, and becoming consistent with the techniques that you are using. But the more similar models you do, the faster you get, and the better they look in the end. Looking at the shields on these knights, I think I'm going to use some transfers to add a design and break up the solid block of colour. I will have a dig around and see what I have in my stash. If you don't see any designs on these shields before the end of the video, then it means I couldn't find anything appropriate and will have to order something. In that case, I will update you on the shields in a future video. As always, I finished the models with the same basing methods shown in the previous videos. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to complete the movement tray for these units in time, so we'll do that alongside the remaining ones needed for this army. I also need to decide on what type of banners the army will use. Either the classic, bright and colourful period accurate ones, or, more likely, tattered and worn versions. Again, I will fold those updates into a future video alongside the shields. Base rims black, a couple of coats of ultra matte varnish, and some grass tufts, and we are done. Here we have the completed models. The more I see a variety of figures using the same scheme, the more I like how the army is coming together. I think that green verdigris contrasting against the browns of the bone and armour adds a really nice pop of colour and gives a bit of visual interest to the units. I wanted to start with the more basic models in the army because I thought that if I could establish a scheme that I like at this stage, then painting more interesting things later on with similar techniques and colour palettes would be more enjoyable. However, now is the time to see how they look alongside the rest of the army. I think this is starting to come together nicely, and I'm enjoying seeing the project progress. I think the next unit in the army is going to be that wonderful block of Gary Morley zombies. There are going to be lots of new things in that video, different textures and materials from what I've been doing up to now, so it should be a nice change of pace. Thank you for joining me in this video. I hope you've enjoyed watching me paint these mounted monsters and ranged rabble. I'm curious to hear what you think about the use of 3D printing in the hobby. Do you like the idea of using it to create units that never existed? Or do you like to keep things in their original states? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Stay old school and long live the lead.